We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It's Tuesday. Got a lot of shit going on, things to talk about. Hunter Biden on trial, Donald Trump convicted, as we know. And we have the good fortune of having Eric from Iowa joining us today. And Eric, I'm glad you joined us today, particularly you, somebody of your age, I wanted to be able to talk to today. So thanks for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. It's always a good time.
You're probably wondering why I was thinking of you and your age group, because
A little bit.
we have to ask the most important question of the day, and that is, what are your feelings on this new Eminem song?
I don't have any. I haven't heard it.
You haven't heard it? Have you not been
Nope.
on TikTok? It's on every fucking
I
video on TikTok.
okay. If I heard it, I didn't notice that it was new. I'm not an Eminem fan. It didn't affect me at all.
Well, it's interesting. I talked about it because um, not, Eminem was more a guy for my kids, but I knew who Eminem is, and actually I have a certain amount of respect for his talents. I don't listen to everything he does. I don't even necessarily like it, but I do have a lot of respect for who the guy is. And now he's come out and done this song, and he's dissing other people, and he's got a album coming out, and you've got the Gen Xers loving the shit out of this because he's back, and the Gen Zs freaking out because they want to cancel him because of all the mean shit he says. And clearly they were born before Slim Shady, because that's all Slim Shady did. That's how he got fucking popular. But what I respect out of this guy is something that I attribute to myself too. He's a guy that doesn't give a fuck. He says whatever he says. He's not fearful of it. He's not worried about getting canceled. I mean, I don't think you can even cancel Eminem at this point because of his attitude. But he comes out and he does this, and he freaks everybody the fuck out. And either they love him or they hate him. But the bottom line is he's going to sell a lot of albums because of the
Oh
noise
yeah.
he's making.
Oh yeah. I mean, I haven't heard this particular song. I know who Eminem is, and that is definitely right up his alley. He talks a lot of shit, says what he's gonna say, and you know, he doesn't care what your opinion of him really is at the end of the day. He's like, this is me, love it or hate it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the younger people are coming out, and he may say some things that are inappropriate or whatever, but that's his thing. And people are saying we're offended. And it always reminds me of a story. This is why I can, I have nothing. I'm not comparing myself to Eminem, but we have a similar attitude. I remember one time I was at work, and I was telling this joke about my wife to a friend of mine there. And this woman was standing across the room, and it was a very normal, not blue, not mean, nothing like that. It's just jokes she would tell about me or I'd tell about her. And this woman apparently heard it. And later that day, my boss came in and said, "Yeah, we want to talk to you." So I had to go in this room with her and with him. And he wasn't liking it because he knew this wasn't going to go well for her. And she said, "Well, such and such is offended by what you said." I said, "Why? It had nothing to do with her. I wasn't even talking to her, and it wasn't even bad in the first place." "Well, she's going through a tough divorce and just doesn't want to hear that stuff." So I look at her and I said, "So you were offended?" And she says, "Yes, I was offended." I said, "Well, I'll tell you this. I'm offended by the fact that you're offended." And she goes, "Well, that's ridiculous." I said, "I agree. I guess we're done here." And I fucking walked out. And my boss just shook his head and gone, "Jesus Christ, he's right. He's right. It's silly. The whole thing is fucking silly." But you know what? You have to wonder about the people that are worrying about Eminem or whoever being offensive. When it comes to music, from people who were successful, they were all offensive in one way or another. Elvis offended people by shaking his leg. Beatles were offensive to people because they sang about drugs. We had Bob Dylan being offensive because he sang protest songs. Hell, Elton John was offensive because he came out as gay in the 70s. That's what the whole thing is about. People people need to take a look at the Bill of Rights, because nowhere in the Bill of Rights does it say you have a right not to be offended. Being offended is part of life. It's time to put on your big boy, big girl pants and fucking take it like adult. There are things that offend me and offend you by the Republican Party every fucking day and offend all parts of this country. And nobody's crying for me or you. So if you're worried about being offended from a fucking song, you need to man up or woman up and fucking deal with it.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a part of music. I mean, there's a big difference between, some of what like since I haven't heard the song, I don't know what they're offended by. But just being offended because of this of a song, okay, move on. Like if he's not being outwardly racist, homophobic, anything like that, you have no reason to be you might be offended, but you that's not something to cancel him over.
Well, he can't cancel Eminem. He doesn't care. He's got more than
Yeah.
enough money. He's incredibly famous and he doesn't give a fuck. And that's what I've told people too. I said, once you can bring yourself to the point where you don't give a fuck, nobody can do anything to you. I mean, you're experiencing that too, just like I do. We've got, because of the things we talk about on TikTok, I get a lot of great accolades and a lot of people saying nice things to me, but I get a lot of things, people saying horrible things to me. And I know you are too. If you take that seriously or give a fuck, well, then maybe it might crush your soul. But if you don't give a fuck, that's my superpower. And that's a superpower anybody can have if they just choose to do it.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I haven't seen too much as far as the negative comments that I haven't heard somewhere else before.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not original by
Oh,
any stretch of the imagination. So I just block them and move on. And that's all you can do. I mean, it doesn't offend me because they say stupid shit. If the best thing they can do is go after the fact that I'm bald, my teeth are messed up, whatever, if that's all they can counter and I'm spitting facts, I know I'm winning.
yeah, exactly. I got in their head. That's the main thing. The only thing that bugs me more than anything when people, um, like if I'm in public and somebody walks up to me and says something bad to me, I'm fucking joyful. Because when it comes to ripping people or making fun of people or making people look stupid, I'm real good at that. And if you're standing in front of me and you open up that door, that window to judgment, and you can do it, so now I can do it, oh, this is going to be fucking fun. But when you're dealing with people on the internet, it doesn't do any good to go at them in the comments, because then they cry and go to TikTok and take you down. So the only thing you can really do is block them. And that's the one positive too thing too, is that they expose themselves. They reveal themselves for who they are, so we can make them inconsequential by blocking them.
Oh yeah, and it's very easy. I mean, I've been finding a bunch, not just on my own videos, in the comment sections of other videos, and because they'll say the same thing on everybody's video. They attack your hairstyle, your looks, whatever, your fashion sense. It's like, but you're talking politics and you're talking the issues, and all they can focus on is something else. Well, clearly, you're not here to have an interesting or rational discussion, or you don't want to talk policy. I don't have any time for you.
Nah, it's not worth the time. The thing is, we're going to, for all the people listening who are on TikTok or maybe even create things on TikTok or other places, you have to understand that between now and November, it's going to get crazy, because these people know they're losing. They are going to get unhinged and irrational. They got Donald Trump convicted of 34 felony charges. They've got no wins they can point to. So they're going to be going crazy, calling names, trying to do crazy shit. So just be ready for it.
Yeah, they are going to come unhinged. They are going to do stuff, and I think you're also starting to see a little more bot accounts. I think
Yeah.
you're going to start seeing more bots. Um, Especially, I think that's part of how Donald Trump got up to what is it, 2 million, 3 million followers in a day and a half or 2 days.
Yeah.
I think they bought and paid for a bunch to feed his ego. Um,
Yeah,
because
I
I
think
bet you if you
so.
check who's all following, they probably all only follow him or just a few people. And I've seen a lot more posts where it's nothing more than a picture of his account up with some music in the background. And it's like, nope, you're blocked, you're blocked, you're blocked.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see a lot more of that as his account starts putting out more stuff. You're going to see more accounts doing nothing but reposting his stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at his account right now. He's following nobody. He's got 4.6 million followers. He's got one video, and that video was with Dana White or whatever from UFC announcing that he has a TikTok. Now, that TikTok has been viewed by 73 million people, and he's got 4.6 million followers. But we know as well as anybody, if you're going to do something on TikTok and use it properly with a decent crowd of people, as opposed to just Trump-the-fucks, um, you got to create some things. You got to be entertaining or informative or stupid or whatever. And they haven't put anything up since they put this first one up. He wants to be on TikTok so he can reach the young people, which is absolutely hilarious. What people have to understand is Donald Trump will never go in a bathroom, point his phone at the mirror, and do anything. It's all going to be little clips of videos that some of his staff put up, and it's not going to be anything you haven't already seen on the TV news or on Truth Social or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I saw somebody was theorizing that he wants to get into the creator fund
That could be.
and that he's looking for a new way to grift some money through TikTok. And, that might be something that he's not going to do lives like Michael Cohen. He's not going to do normal videos. It's like you said, it's all going to be clips or it's going to be really thought out, staged
Yeah.
speeches or whatever. It's not going to be just unless he really gets a flair for it because he realizes Truth Social's failing and he turns it into a new version of Twitter. Maybe it'll be, images of what his tweet would have been or whatever, or maybe his truths from Truth Social, but that'd be about it.
Well, I mean, do you think he's given up on Truth Social because it's failing? It's losing hundreds of millions of dollars every quarter. You wouldn't think he'd go on TikTok or any other social media platform and compete with his own social media platform. Think he's given up on that going anywhere?
I don't know if he's giving up on it or if he's going to try to use TikTok to bolster,
That could be.
like share some of his stuff from Truth Social or whatever to direct people back there. And maybe he is kind of giving up, but I do know, or I know there was something about when he got his Twitter account back, they were talking about with Truth Social, that there was a window of time, like I think it was 24 or 48 hours. He wasn't allowed to post the same content on Twitter as he did on Truth Social
Right, right.
because
Well,
that was in his contract. And I don't know what it would be involving uh, now TikTok.
we're going to talk a little bit about the convictions. We've talked about that a lot. 34 felony convictions. I knew he was going to get convicted. A little surprised that he got hit with all of them, but really because it's a documents case. And if one document is making him guilty, they all should. They're all pretty much the same thing. Um, but I found it interesting, and I'm wondering what your take on this is. As soon as the convictions came out, they were claiming that there was all kinds of amazing fundraising. First it was 30 million, then it was 50 million, then it was 70 million, and now they're saying they raised 140 million dollars. Now the media is reporting it as if that's fact. People on the Democratic side are believing it because they claim or they think it's a fact. What do you think about that? I know I have my point of view and I'll give it to you after you give me yours.
Well, I don't know if he raised that much money. I think the numbers inflated. I heard he crashed or they crashed his website, which that didn't surprise me. I did a TikTok on that, and I said, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Probably, paid for by the or paid to the cheapest person to put it together. Lowest bidder.
Yeah.
So it couldn't handle that kind of volume. But somebody on TikTok did a video, and they did the math. I think when he was talking 30 some million, it came out to like $1.39 a person on average donation, if it was all small dollars. So it's entirely possible that he did raise that kind of money, but I think the number's inflated. Um, but at the same point, a fool and their money is easily separated, and these people keep donating their money to him, rather than paying their rent, paying for food or whatever. The other thing I said on it was, if they got money to give to a billionaire who has just been convicted 34 times, the economy must be pretty damn good. I don't want to hear him complaining that Joe Biden's economy sucks.
Well, let me give you a different point of view that I have on this. I personally think the idea that he got 30 million or 140 million is absolute bullshit. And I'll tell you why I think it's bullshit. You remember some time back when Joe Biden had his fundraiser and it went crazy. He got $25 million, and that was a record. Now, within 2 days, Donald Trump had a fundraiser, and Donald Trump was notable for having trouble with his fundraising half as much as Joe Biden. But surprise, surprise, he had a fundraiser with like 60 people there, and somehow he raised $50 million. And they were crowing about it and threatening people, we got $50 million, we're going to do it. But when the FEC came out with their report at the end of the month, they found out, nah, it wasn't even close to that. It wasn't even close to the 25 million. He got a bunch of promissory notes or something from people. Now, how many people do you think dropped out of those promissory notes after he got convicted? I would say most of them, because they know he can't win. Why would you give money to a guy who can't win? So he's telling us he got $50 million. We later find out absolute lie. So if we know that for sure, that's a fact. Why would we believe what he's telling us now after the convictions? This is what Donald Trump does. You hit him, he's going to hit you back harder. That's what he says. And that's what he did here with this claim of this ridiculous amount of fundraising. He didn't get that kind of money. He's lying.
Well, I do think he got an amount of money. I don't know how much. And I do think that his website probably did crash. But yeah, I don't know if I buy the exact dollar amount.
Now,
But like I said, somebody did the math and it comes out to like $1.39 a person. You know, I could see maybe that because people, oh yeah, I can give $2 to $5. But I don't know. When it comes to Donald Trump and money, everything's a grift. Everything is there's always an angle. And the other thing I pointed out when I did my TikTok is I do know there's a thing where if you are convicted of a crime, you are not allowed to profit from that crime.
right.
Or if you're convicted of one. Well, like if you robbed a bank, you can't turn around and write a book or sell the movie rights about how you robbed the bank and
No.
make a ton of money. So by him sending out fundraising emails after he got convicted, is that in itself another crime? Because he's trying to profit off being convicted.
Well, that's the interesting thing about Donald Trump. He's been convicted of 34 felony charges. He's got at least another 54 that are upcoming in some of the other trials, and we'll talk more about that later. Um, if you think Donald Trump has stopped committing crimes because he's on trial and being investigated, that's not true. We just heard yesterday, ProPublica came out with some information saying that it was found out that maybe 9 of Donald Trump's witnesses to Donald Trump's criminal trials ended up having windfalls by way of Donald Trump. Some people got big um, packages to leave. Some people got uh, their incomes raised by double. Somebody else got their daughter a job in the campaign, making all kinds of money. So what it's saying is that Donald Trump, the Trump organization, and the Trump campaign are paying off witnesses, especially around crucial times to when those witnesses might have went in front of the grand jury or whatever. Now that is plain and simple witness tampering, and that is against the law, and that is a felony. The only thing ProPublica said was that we haven't found any proof of his intent, meaning was he what he was intending to do. Well, Donald Trump told us he's miserly and he's cheap. Why is he giving these people all this money? There's got to be a reason for it. And if you don't have a reason, the obvious Occam's razor is that you're trying to pay off people to do your bidding. We know you tried to do it with Hope Hicks. We know you tried to do it with Michael Cohen. So why would this be surprising?
Oh, it's not surprising. I hadn't heard a lot about that. But that doesn't surprise me in the least. And if he is paying off witnesses, well, there's another crime. And if there's any evidence to that, and that it's happening anytime after this conviction and it's still going on, Alvin Bragg might be able to bring that in during sentencing as, hey, look, he's still committing crimes. We need him off the streets.
Right. Well, and that's probably what's going to happen. We've got a bunch of people in the media, some politicians, pundits of all types saying, "Oh, he'll never get jail time. He'll never get jail time for this." I heard somebody talking about this, and previous people who have committed these very same crimes in New York have gotten jail time. Now, he's a former president, but a lot of things that come into play when they decide what the sentencing is remorse, recidivism, whether he would do it again, his attitude. I mean, he's done nothing but try to tear down this judge and his daughter. I can't imagine that Judge Marchand, who's a pretty serious and conservative guy in the first place, is going to be too happy and willing to let off Donald Trump easy. I just don't see that happening.
I don't either. And then you got there was the thing with the probation report that he was told to immediately report to the probation office. And you know, apparently it's one of those things that doesn't have teeth because you don't have to immediately go. You can call their office and set it up at a later date and all of this. But he didn't immediately after court go down and talk to probation like the court order said. He just left, and then he immediately went outside and started tearing down the judge.
Right.
And then he's going to turn around and he's going to ask the judge. I heard he was going to ask the judge to delay sentencing until after the Republican National Convention.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
Because, well, and his thought was, I don't want to be sitting in a jail cell when they make me the nominee, and if they make me the nominee, then they won't put me in a jail cell.
Well, the thing about it is Judge Juan Marchand has made it very clear. The fact that he's a presidential candidate means nothing. He's a guy that's committed crimes. He's going to be treated like everybody else, which is all we're asking for. I don't think
Exactly.
they're going to change the sentencing date. I think personally, I think they need to put him in jail for a period of time. They need to put him in, whether it's 2 days, 2 months, or 2 years. The point I'm making is that if Donald Trump spends any time in prison, that's going to break that fragile, emotional, ego-driven motherfucker. He's not going to be able to handle it. Now, he did say when he was asked about it on Fox News, "What if they put you in jail?" "I'm okay with it." "Yeah, you're okay with it. You're shitting your pants, literally and figuratively, and you're trying to be tough out here, but we know you're scared as fuck."
Yeah, he says he's okay with it. And then he repeats the talking point. Oh, well, if they could do it to me, they could do it to you. Yeah, motherfucker. That's the goddamn point. You're not above the law. If I went out and I forged business records in the furtherance of other crimes, I would expect them to go after me.
Exactly. Not only if we committed the same crimes Donald Trump committed, not only would they go after us just like Donald Trump, they'd come after us about 10 times as hard because we're not a former president. We're not rich. We don't have connections. They would fucking hammer us into a fucking oil spot in the ground.
Oh, yeah, definitely, without a doubt. And he's just acting like this is all one big game. Then you have his attorney, Todd Blanche, going on CNN looking like an utter dumbass. Um, Basically said well, there were all kinds of witnesses that could have proved Donald Trump's innocence, but the prosecution didn't call him.
Right.
Are I did a whole TikTok. I'm like, are you new? Is this your first day as a trial attorney? No, you were a former prosecutor. What the hell? You know, you know how this works. If they proved his innocence, you call them on the defense. That's your job. You know this.
Yeah, at
He
this
goes
point,
out,
they're just
he
making
says
excuses.
he says the talking point because he knows the base is going to hear it and go, yeah, the prosecution should have called these people. Why didn't they do it? Because the base doesn't know how this shit works.
Yeah, exactly. They will say anything to to misinform somebody. I told something on the podcast yesterday. I talked to a guy who was talking to a Trumplafuck, and this Trumplafuck said he wasn't going to vote for Joe Biden because Joe Biden's going to take away his Social Security and Medicare. Now, here's a motherfucker that's completely mentally lost. He has no clue. He's been misinformed. He's been lied to, and the dumb fuck believes it. That's just the opposite of what the situation is, and he can't comprehend it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I saw some posts around Memorial Day saying, if you're gonna go out and vote for a five-time draft dodger who calls fallen soldiers losers and suckers, but claim to be a patriot and love our veterans, what's wrong with you?
Yeah,
And they do the same thing. That's the same thing. They look at something that is completely opposite of what they believe, and they're cheering for it. They
right.
don't even understand, for whatever reason, they're caught up in his cult of personality, and whatever he says, they'll cheer, even if it goes against something else they believe in.
Right. Yeah, it's I mean, we are dealing with stupid people. I mean, that's the only way you can explain it. They might be in a cult, they may be brainwashed, but you have to be stupid. The information is there right in front of you. You can get it if you want to. Google is free. You just go on and say, "Who wants to get rid of Medicare?" And they're going to come up with the Republicans, not the Democrats. But see, I'm convinced they want to believe what they want to believe. And anything they can get to support that just solidifies their misinformation and their these wrong ideas. And that's the trouble. You can't argue with these people because they can't comprehend the truth or facts. It just doesn't pay to even engage with them. They're simpletons.
Oh yeah, um, it's amazing what they come back with. Now that I've seen people say on some of the comment sections, well, he's not really a convicted felon until the appeal's over. No, motherfucker, that's not how this works. He's a convicted felon. The appeal don't mean shit. Well, the Supreme Court can overturn it. No, it's state charges. The Supreme Court can't do shit. And now they're coming out loud and proud. Well, I guess I'm voting for a felon.
Good for
If
you. You'll be
if the roles were reversed and it was Barack Obama running for another term against a Republican president, and he had 34 felonies, they would be screaming and hollering from the rooftops, how can you elect a felon?
right. Well, so, the thing about it is the one strategy that Donald Trump used all this period of time while Joe Biden's been president and he's been under investigation and under indictment, the one strategy he's used is now going to work against him. Yes, he can appeal this case, but it's going to take a while. It's going to take a couple, 3 years. You want to buy time? Okay, we'll buy time. It's going to take a couple of years. And all that time, you are a convicted felon. And when you get to the appeals court, Judge Marchand ran a pretty meticulous trial. Really were no hiccups. There's really nothing to appeal, but you'll come up with something, but you won't win. You won't fucking win. And whether he ends up in jail in this case, the other three cases, when he's found guilty there, those will require jail time. I think you'll find some jail time in this case where he's been convicted. It won't be a long time, and I don't think that's important. His him being embarrassed and out of control is going to destroy him when he goes to jail. But these other things, He'll be in there a while, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. He will die in jail once he gets there.
Oh, without a doubt. Um, but then on top of it, one of the other things I thought of is as he gets going on these other gag orders, even if he doesn't get any jail time in New York, he's going to be he could be on probation.
Right,
Well, one of the things about probation is if you commit a crime, your probation is revoked.
right.
Well, they already got a gag order in DC pending the immunity claim. That goes back into effect. He'll violate that motherfucker.
Yeah.
He'll probably get a gag order in Georgia. He's gonna violate that motherfucker. Once we get rid of Aileen Cannon, he'll get a gag order down there. He'll violate that motherfucker. And for any of them, the judge and the prosecutor in New York, if he's only on probation, go probation violation, and away he goes.
Well, what people don't understand is Judge Juan Marchand was in a tough situation going into this trial because he knew that anything that happened would create turmoil or chaos and delay the trial. Judge Juan Marchand's only really focus was to get through this trial, get it done, get a verdict, get it over with. So he walked lightly around Donald Trump. He put up with more stuff with Donald Trump than he would. He's a pretty serious fucking guy. But now that the case is over, there's no reason for Judge Juan Marchand to take any more shit. There's no reason for him to walk on eggshells. Donald Trump's going to be dealing with an entirely different situation, entirely different judge if he fucks around and commits a crime, whether it be toward the Manhattan District or any of the other cases. Like you say, it's not breaking laws for just the Manhattan District. It's breaking any laws like witness tampering, like we talked about earlier. If he ends up getting indicted from that, he's already gone against his rules of release. He's going Donald Trump is going to have problems every fucking day for the rest of his life as these things have been stretched out.
Oh yeah, he's definitely gonna have problems. And as we get going, he's not gonna have another good day. Every single day he's got to get up, look at himself in the mirror, and deal with the fact that he is 34 times a convicted felon.
Right. Exactly.
And he gets asked about it at every exchange, and people, it's never going to go away. And he will be a convicted felon up until the point, should, with the less than 1% chance that it would happen, should an appeals court side with him and toss this case out. But then usually it only gets tossed out, goes back down, and they retry him, and he'll get found guilty again.
Right.
So, I mean, he is going to have this title over his head from now until the day he dies. And then, he's going to lose the November election if he makes it that far, if the Republicans don't pick somebody else.
Well, and this is why I've told people all I care about is the convictions in this particular case, whether he goes to jail before the election or not. I'm not really worried about that because if it all goes beyond the election, even the other three trials, I don't care about them going after the election because Donald Trump should be worried about getting exactly what he's asking for. Right now, as a presidential candidate, he has a little bit of protection, and the Republicans are all behind him. So they're fighting for him. Once we go to election day on November 5th and he gets his ass kicked, and I promise you he will get his ass kicked, he's of no value to the Republican Party or anybody else. He's got no protection as being a presidential candidate. This motherfucker is going to be incredibly vulnerable. He won't have the power, he won't have the sway, and he is going to get decimated after the election with these trials and with any appeal he has going on with the Manhattan District. Remember, take a look at the last 4 years. How many appeals has Donald Trump won? Zero, maybe one, but it was inconsequential. But for the most part, zero. Donald Trump's not going to win that appeal, and he's not going to have any protection once he gets to that point.
No, he's not. And once he's inconsequential, there's not a lot that's left. I could see him attempting as a delay tactic. The day after it's announced that Joe Biden has won the run re-election, I'm running again. I'm running again,
Yeah, but nobody's
and
going to
try
buy
that.
that. Nobody's going to buy that 4 years ahead of the fact. He won't even survive that long. And if he spends time in jail, which I think he will, I'm sure he will, he won't survive jail. I mean, here's a guy who's been pampered all his life, people doing something for him every day. His life is made easy every day by the minions around him, feeding him and patting him on the back. You sit in a prison cell, he'd probably have to be there alone. Him with that ADD and no Coke or no McDonald's or no Adderall, this motherfucker's going to be spinning around in that cell and he's going to go nuts.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then somebody else pointed out, I've seen it, well, multiple people pointed out that about this probation thing that Michael Cohen says you have to go in front of your probation officer in a room, and there's mirrors around you, all around you, and you got to pee in a cup for a drug test. And a lot of people are saying he doesn't want to go show up for the drug test.
Yeah, he's going to have to get the extra wide cup with that mushroom thing going on that Stormy told us about. So, yeah, can I get an extra wide cup? No. Yeah, for those folks that are eating breakfast or lunch, I apologize. Anyway, yeah, it's going to be. Donald Trump can say, "I'm okay with going into jail." No, you're not, motherfucker. You have no clue. You had a tough time sitting in court and not being able to leave. You had to be drugged up to sit there still and not open your mouth. It's not going to be good. That's like I said, if he's in there a week, it will fucking destroy him. I don't care how long he's in jail, just so he spends some time in stir to send the message home to Donald Trump.
Oh yeah. I think he's going to get it. I think Judge Merchan's going to be the one to give it to him, especially after that interview he gave where he said he wasn't going to beg for leniency. He wasn't going to beg for, you know, beg the judge to not put him in jail. And one of the key things about, getting sentenced is they look at, are you remorseful? Do you accept the fact that you committed a crime? And Donald Trump will never accept that ever.
No.
He will
Well,
never admit it.
you know what I'd like to see? Now, if he's sentenced to jail and he appeals it, theoretically, he'll stay out of jail until the appeal's done. So he won't see jail time right away. And I don't even know if this is legal, but I think it is. If I'm Judge Juan Marchand, I say, look, you're sentenced to 4 months in jail. He says, I don't care. I'm going to appeal it. I'll be out until I appeal it. I hope Judge Marchand says, by the way, you did violate the gag order 13 motherfucking times. I didn't do anything to you. I said I'd reserve my decision on that. Well, I've got that decision now. You can appeal that shit, but you did violate the gag order multiple times. So before you get on your appeal, we're going to put you in jail for 3, 4 days, just so you know that you're not supposed to break the gag order. That would be my best gift ever. Just send him in there for 2, 3 days and give him a taste of what his future's about.
Well, I know the gag order goes at least through sentencing. I don't know past that. And depending like on how that like it could very well be where he goes for the appeal and like he files it. Oh, I'm going to file the appeal. Well, he files the appeal, and the appellate court looks at it because they'll look at it within a few days, and they just go, "No, we're not hearing this. Denied." And
Yeah.
he might not drag this out for years, so he could be sitting in a cell on the gag order, you know, violations while his appeal is getting denied by the appellate court. And then he just gets to stay.
Have you seen on TikTok? Some people have put up um, a picture of the justices in the first appellate court that Donald Trump has to go to. The first place he has to appeal to. Now, I'm not sure this is real, but I've seen it in a number of places. But the picture of the judges or the justices in that first appellate court, all black women. Oh, they love Donald Trump, don't they?
Oh yeah. Now, if that is legit, which I'm not sure if it is or not, I've seen that too, and I wasn't sure if it was or not, so I didn't comment on it. I didn't do a TikTok on it, but he would hate every minute of it,
Yeah.
of having to go to those ladies and say, "Keep me out of prison."
Yeah. And I don't think if it matters if it's black women or white men or white women. Um, as I said, this case was done so meticulously. Judge Juan Marchand is probably one of the most respected judges in New York. He's on the Supreme Court in New York. He didn't fuck around. He didn't make mistakes. And that's the only way they can appeal it is if he made mistakes. And he's pretty well known for not making mistakes. So him appealing this is going to be difficult for him.
Well, yeah, they have to have some sort of a mistake by the judge. The only thing they might have is an inadequate counsel defense appeal. If Donald Trump gets a different attorney to go after Todd Blanche and say, well, Todd Blanche didn't do a good enough job defending Donald Trump because they didn't call any witnesses, then he goes out afterward on CNN and says there's all kinds of witnesses, and like they might have something there, but even that's a Hail Mary pass.
Yeah, it's a Hail Mary pass. And um, I know that when they went into this trial, he was asked if he's going to use that defense that his lawyers didn't do a good job, and he said no, and then he wasn't allowed to do that. I don't know if that changes when they're going to the appeals court or not. Suffice to say, he will try anything he can, but there's another problem here. If he fires the existing lawyers, he's got to get new lawyers. He's having a hell of a time getting lawyers, and he's running out of fucking money in spite of what he said he fundraised. Um, they're saying Donald Trump is spending $90,000 a day on legal fees. It's not going to take long to run through what money he has. And then he's not going to have legal fees. So how do you appeal something if you can't afford lawyers?
I don't know. I mean, as long as his status as a billionaire or millionaire or whatever, until all of his assets are whittled down to like poverty level nothing, he wouldn't qualify for a public defender to handle his appeal. Maybe he has Eric file all the paperwork for him and act as his attorney. I mean, I don't know. It I just he what is he gonna have, put an ad out on Facebook? Need someone with a law license,
Right.
and just see who applies. Some new graduate who just got their bar, who just passed the bar. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It doesn't look good for Donald Trump's future. He's going to have a lot of problems, a lot of issues. And as I've said before, today was the best day of the rest of his life because it's going to get nothing but worse every day. Even after these convictions, it's still going to get worse. And nobody's earned it more than Donald Trump. All right, Eric, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. We're back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Eric from Iowa is our guest today, or co host, whichever way you want to look at it. A lot of stuff to talk about. And of course, we have the big news in Delaware, the start of Hunter Biden's trial in Delaware. It's regarding the gun charges of all that investigation. He's still got tax evasion he's got to look into. He was out in LA for some other shit. But this is the gun charges. And what people have to understand about these gun charges, he wasn't wielding a gun. He didn't point it at anybody. He didn't rob a liquor store. This crime amounts to him going to buy a gun, filling out a federal form and signing it while allegedly being an addict, which is illegal. Now, as I've understood it, this particular crime doesn't usually get sent to sent to trial. But in this instance, by virtue of him being the president's son, apparently they think it's necessary.
Well, there's that. And of course, this was all put up by Republicans. The special investigator who was looking into it was appointed by Donald Trump's DOJ way back when. They waited until the last minute of the last day of when they could get him on the statute of limitations to bring these charges.
Right.
They scrapped the deal because Republicans in Congress were screaming and hollering how it wasn't fair. But Hawk had an interesting take on this. And Hawk basically said, effectively, what Hunter Biden did is similar to what Donald Trump did in the hush money case. He checked the wrong box on a form. He said he wasn't a drug user when he was. And effectively, if you're saying that, oh, it's a bookkeeping error and it's a misdemeanor, it's not a felony, and it's not a big thing, you shouldn't send somebody to prison for it, then Hunter Biden shouldn't go to prison for it because it's a bookkeeping error. It was an honest mistake or whatever.
Well, what's interesting about this is Donald Trump's trial. He committed these crimes. There's all kinds of evidence. There's all kinds of witnesses. Yet the Republicans will tell us that this was politically motivated. That the government was weaponized against Donald Trump. The fact is, he fucking did it. So it's not weaponized. It's not politically motivated. But if you go to Hunter Biden, he's on trial for something nobody would be tried for because he's the president's son, like you say, from a special special counsel that was tied to Donald Trump. They had a deal cut, and then they took that back and they said, "No, we're going to take you to trial." If that isn't the essence of politically motivated, I don't know what the fuck is.
Yeah, you're right. And it's clear to anybody else. But there's a couple things I've also noted from this case. Um, Joe Biden could have pardoned Hunter and been done with it. He didn't. He's letting it play out because he understands what it really is and what the optics of issuing a pardon to Hunter for this would be. So he's putting his faith in the system and that the system's going to work. And then you have the big difference between Hunter Biden and Donald Trump. I mean, well, Hunter Biden is a licensed attorney.
Right.
You don't see Hunter Biden giving press conferences before and after. He's
No.
not talking to the media. He's not going out ranting and raving about the judge, about the prosecutor, about how unfair these charges are. He's doing what we said all along Donald Trump should be doing, and that's shutting up.
Right.
Every attorney will tell you if you're facing criminal charges, you say nothing to anybody. You let it play out, and that's what he's doing.
The thing about it is that I don't really care if Hunter Biden gets convicted or not. He's not the president. He's just a guy. If he committed a crime and there is a legitimate punishment for that, he should get it. But I will tell you this is my prediction. If they just railroad this fuck out of this kid, this guy, and put him in jail for an extensive period of time just to be bullies, January 21st, 2025, he will get pardoned by Joe Biden right after he's been inaugurated, just to piss off the Republicans.
Oh, probably. And then as far as the coverage of this, I was listening or reading some stuff about it, and they were talking about the jurors and some of the reasons why the jurors were excused. And I thought it was very telling. They asked about the Donald Trump case, and they excused one juror who said Donald Trump didn't get a fair trial. They said, "Okay, you're excused." Both sides agreed. Nope, we're excusing this guy.
Right.
There was another one who said they only got their news from Newsmax or from OAN and Fox, and they had a poor opinion of Hunter Biden and couldn't be biased or couldn't be unbiased. Both sides agreed. Like, you're not hearing the arguments about the jurors. They're being very fair. And I think that Donald Trump question is actually going to come up quite often in cases going forward. Maybe not
Yeah.
even if there any sort of a political leaning case whatsoever, and maybe even not, because it's really telling on whether or not you could be a fair juror. Is if you say, well, no, Donald Trump didn't get a fair shake. I don't, you know, I wouldn't want them in the jury box if I was the defendant.
No, definitely not. And the thing about it is what they're doing to Hunter Biden is nothing more than Republican performance art. They don't accomplish anything when they have these investigations and these hearings. Like yesterday, they had a hearing and they made Dr. Anthony Fauci testify about the whole COVID thing. Now, the point of this commission or this committee is to better prepare us for the next pandemic. And that wasn't what it was. It was the Republicans trying to tear down Anthony Fauci. And I found it strange because there's never been any evidence that Fauci did anything untoward, but we have a hearing over it. I'm waiting for that hearing regarding the Republicans and Donald Trump who told us COVID was a hoax. I'm looking for a hearing for the Republicans and Donald Trump who said it'll just go away when it warms up. Or those same people who said you can't wear a mask, it doesn't work. Or the vaccination is going to put a chip in your arm. And the end result 1.1 million Americans died. I think we need a hearing on that motherfucker before we need to talk to Dr. Fauci. Nobody died under Fauci's watch, but under the Republicans with the shit they did and didn't do regarding COVID. They are culpable for the deaths. They are responsible for the deaths of a large majority of those 1 million Americans.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And the only reason they're dragging him through the mud is because he was doing his job as an infectious disease expert and
Yeah,
talking about the infectious disease part of it and how it works, et cetera, et cetera. And because it was countering the narrative Donald Trump was trying to spin, they wanted to crucify him. And because it still makes Donald Trump and the Republicans look stupid because he was correct, they're trying to drag his name through the mud and discredit him and make him all foolish, all while playing up to an audience of mostly one in
right.
Donald Trump, but also to their base.
What do you think is going to happen when this is all said and done? Donald Trump doesn't win the election, the Republicans lose the House and the Senate, and they finally realize that they fucked up by following Donald Trump and sticking by Donald Trump. When they finally realize that they were taking orders from and the lead from the dumbest motherfucker in the room, that is going to be the ultimate of embarrassing because they're going to realize it when everything falls apart and fails. And it's in the process now. They should see it coming, but they refuse to act accordingly. They're going to ride this fucker over the cliff and they're going to go down with Donald Trump, and they should. I wish them luck and bon voyage, motherfucker. Or as I'm just waiting for Donnie to go off the cliff and quote um, the guy from Die Hard. Yippee ki yay, motherfucker!
No, but I think like I don't even know if they're going to get it, but I think what's going to happen is, and we've talked about it before, that it's going to take them several election cycles to bounce back. They're going
Absolutely.
to have to, um, give up some incumbents, even in some good red states and red districts where they're solid. For example, just we probably couldn't oust Marjorie Taylor Greene out of her seat. She's probably safe in that seat,
Right.
but they would need to run somebody else in that seat besides her and start changing out the faces of the Republican Party and put the crazies back on the back pedal, on the back burner, in order to have a chance. And in the process, while they're doing that, Democrats are going to have the run of the government for 4, 8, 12 years, something like that. And
Right.
a whole bunch of shit's going to get done.
Whole bunch of shit's going to get done. And not only are they going to have to recover the Republicans, they're going to have to find out a way to beat the Democratic Party, who has done a lot of shit. This is not good news for the Republicans. They are in deep shit. And when this is over, you said Marjorie Taylor Greene may not get kicked out by her district because they'd vote her in. Can you imagine what Marjorie Taylor Greene's life is going to be like when the Democrats hold the majority in the House by 30 seats? It's not going to be a pleasant time for Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's used to trying to get attention, but she'll be inconsequential. She'll be unimportant, irrelevant. And that is going to drive her nuts. And if she fucks around, there'll be enough votes to kick her ass out.
Oh yeah, I could easily see it. I mean, it would take 2/3 of the chamber, but if there's enough votes in the Democrat, I don't think the Democrats would hold enough seats to do it alone. But enough Republicans already hate her
Right.
that, and if they're trying to rebrand their party, they may not have a choice but to side with Democrats and oust her.
To be honest with you, if they're trying to rebrand their party and get rid of the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene's, the Republicans may be the ones to initiate kicking her ass out, kicking Matt Gaetz out if he's back. I think the Republicans will be more responsible for kicking the bad shit out of there than the Democrats will ever need to be.
Oh, possibly, but could you imagine the hypocrisy? I mean, and she's not one to recognize hypocrisy, but they hold like the sane Republicans put her up on a vote to get her expelled from the House, and then she's got to go beg the Democrats to save her seat and work
Right,
with the Democrats to
right.
try to keep her seat.
Well, and the thing is, after the election, my prediction is that Donald Trump is done. He's unimportant. He's not valuable to the Democrats. And with him will go MAGA. The whole premise of MAGA will be gone. It will have been a failure. There is no reason to stick with them. The regular Republicans will have the opportunity to kind of push them away. I don't know why they didn't do it after Biden was elected. That's when they should have done it, gotten rid of Donald Trump, gotten rid of MAGA, and tried to do something normal, but they refused to do it. But after this next election, when they get defeated soundly, that's really their only option. I believe MAGA will be done after the election on November 5th. And anybody that's still around for MAGA, their time will be short.
Oh, I definitely agree. I think in part the reason they didn't get away from Donald Trump, um, I think he does have some blackmail evidence on at least some of them. Maybe not every member, but enough of the known names that he's able to control them, and they're keeping the rest in line.
Well, that's an interesting thing. We've heard that a lot, that he's known for doing that sort of thing, calling people out and exposing them for crimes. He's always kind of insinuated it. He's never really come out with these people as yet. But now he's gone over the hill. He's been convicted 34 times. Do you think we're going to start hearing Donald Trump talk some shit for anybody that maybe doesn't do everything he wants?
Entirely possible, especially the closer it gets maybe to his sentencing, and or while he's out post sentencing as he's freaking out. Um, and I know I hear a lot of people say, well, he's going to flee to Russia.
No.
Well, one of the things I was reading, um, beyond the fact that he's not valuable to Russia, as a convicted felon, he was not allowed in Russia.
Or Canada.
His or Canada or the UK. He can't go visit his golf course in Scotland anymore.
Right.
Um, but there's like 37 countries he can't go to, but Russia was one of them. So for everybody saying he was going to flee, if he was going to do it, he would have done it already. But no, I think he might be, as he's flailing, he's going to probably release whatever blackmail he has on these people if he doesn't think they're doing enough to save him. Um, so I'm kind of expecting the press conferences and the news bites and the sound bites from certain members of Congress to start getting more and more unhinged
Right.
as they're trying to save him closer and closer to his sentencing.
Right. And when that sentencing comes and he hasn't been able to be saved, he's going to be pissed. He's going to be very angry. I mean, in his delusional mind, he still thinks he'll find a way out. He's not going to find a way out. He's been convicted. There's no way to go back on that, save for an appeal. And that's years down the road, and he won't win the appeal anyway. So he can continue to make himself believe that he's going to get out of this. But that sentence comes down, regardless of what it is, that's going to make it real really quickly. And he's going to fucking panic. And since he's so emotional and all he does is react, that may be when we see some crazy shit coming out of his mouth by his own from about his own supporters.
Oh yeah. He's probably got stuff on Lindsey Graham, probably Mitch McConnell. Um, you know, can't think Matt Gates, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I know you got an emailer yesterday who was talking about that they heard somewhere that Marjorie Taylor Greene was saying she was pregnant with Donald Trump's baby, which that oh boy, uh, that'd be a that'd be a thing. Um,
I think that's a bit of
but
bullshit. I think that's bullshit. I've never heard that.
probably is, but you never know. Maybe they had a thing going on. There was the rumors that Carrie Lake and him had a thing going on. Well, she was staying at Mar-a-Lago for a while. You're going to see all him coming out and just unleashing on everybody and anybody he can think of who might have any amount of power or sway to save him. And he might be the one to release any sort of evidence against Ginny Thomas because as he's begging Clarence for some sort of a savior thing, since Clarence is on the Supreme Court, and maybe he sinks Clarence Thomas.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Well, let me just put it to this way. You're a younger man than I. I'm 64 years old. I'm 14 years younger than Donald Trump. If I said to myself, "Hey, I want to have kids," it ain't happening. I'm not going to be able to have kids. It's just not going to happen. Donald Trump is going to be 78. He's not in the best of health. He's not getting anybody pregnant. I guarantee you that. Donald Trump's not capable. He's a fucking decrepit old man. It's just, one of the things we were all waiting in anticipation of this trial. We were excited. We listened to the trial. And then when it was over, I won't say it's anticlimactic. It was climactic and it was very satisfying. But then everybody goes, okay, what's next? What are we waiting for now? And I'll tell you what I'm waiting for now, because I'm going to want to see how this shakes out. In a short period of time, maybe 3 weeks, Donald Trump is set to debate Joe Biden under Joe Biden's rules because he agreed to the rules because he got panicky and anxious and he reacted. So he's supposed to meet up with Joe Biden for the first debate. Now, the reason I'm interested in this, I don't know if you saw this interview that Donald Trump did with Fox and Friends. It went about 90 minutes, which is longer than I expected him to do. But throughout that 90 minutes, he was pretty unhinged, said some crazy shit like, I'm okay with going to jail. But if you watch the video, you notice there were a ton of edits in this. And if he was unhinged in what they showed, I'm curious as to what they cut out. They're there to help Donald Trump, no question, but there were a lot of edits in this conversation. So if Donald Trump can't keep it together for a 90-minute interview, how's he going to do in the debate? I'm still not convinced he's going to show up.
I don't think he will once push comes to shove, unless somebody gets in his head about it. I mean, the rules do not favor Donald Trump at all. Not a single one of the rules favors Donald Trump.
Not
You
his
have to sit at a
style.
table. You have to sit at a table. Your mics are muted if it's not your turn to speak. If if you shout out and talk over the other person, you know, they get to restart their time basically. And then I saw one, if you get up and move like away from your seat, debate's over. It's done. Plus no audience. Um, and it's going to be very rigid and very controlled. I don't think he shows unless somebody gets in his head and he gets this perception of he'll be viewed as weak if he doesn't show.
Well, he will be viewed as weak if he doesn't show. And if he claim, some people say, well, he'll claim he's sick. Not Donald Trump. He will avoid any way of looking weak. He'll make some other crazy excuse for not showing up, but he won't say he's sick unless he's really sick. Um, but I think Joe Biden's doing the right thing. When he called out Joe Biden, Trump called out Joe Biden. Joe Biden said, "Sure, here's the rules I've got. We'll meet twice." And then he made fun of him about being available on Wednesdays. That was the perfect move because that pissed off Donald Trump, caused him to react, caused him to accept the rules as they stood and accepted the challenge. Now, after that happened, a lot of his people said, well, wait a minute, that's not a good idea. But he already committed to it. So I don't know how he's going to get out of it without being embarrassed because that's the paramount thing that he's worried about. I just don't think he's going to show. But God damn it, I hope he does because it will be hilarious.
I mean, one way he might not show is if he's sitting in a jail cell. But as far as any other way he gets out of it, I don't know. You said he wouldn't even admit he's sick, even if unless he's really sick. He wouldn't even do that. Remember when he had COVID?
Yeah.
He got out in the limo and took a victory lap in the limo to all of his supporters, showing I'm okay, I'm okay, it's not a big deal. And he got a Secret Service staff and the driver and all those people, exposed to COVID for no reason other than his own image.
Right. Right. And yeah, that's what he would do. He might claim he's sick to make excuses for a bad showing, but he'll definitely show up sick, whether he's sick or not,
Yeah,
because it's
he'll
all
claim
about
he's sick
performance.
afterward.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll claim it afterward, which actually kind of reminds me of, and uh, not that I'm even going to put them in the same category, but the JFK Richard Nixon debate,
Right.
where the people who watched it saw Nixon looking frail, weak, sick, because he was. But then those people that heard it said he sounded great, he sounded strong, sounded better than Kennedy. He won the debate. If they couldn't match his voice to the image they had of him, like that image was a big reason Nixon lost that debate.
Well,
So I don't
absolutely.
think Donald Trump would show up sick to like where he would appear sick. He would find another way to weasel out, but he
Well,
might claim he was sick afterward.
I don't think Nixon was actually sick. He was just a profuse sweater. He sweated a lot, and he was sweating all the time. Jack Kennedy was younger and better looking, a little smoother. But you're right. People who heard the audio of it and didn't see the video of it thought Nixon won. And people who watched it on television clearly thought Jack Kennedy won. It's interesting. That whole perception thing does play a big role. And in this particular debate, I doubt there's going to be many people listening to just the audio. They'll be watching this, especially the Trumplifucks who want to see Donald Trump kick Joe Biden's ass. Well, they're going to be sorely disappointed because Donald Trump doesn't have a prayer of doing that.
Well, what the Trumplifucks want is everything that Donald Trump has agreed to not do. They want him over talking and insulting Joe Biden and just rambling through Joe Biden's time and yelling insults and being loud and gesturing and menacing and all that. And he's not going to be able to do much of that. He's probably going to sit there, probably going to shit himself, and stumble his way, ramble through some answers, and probably in the middle of a sentence get his mic shut up and have never actually gotten to a point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably true. I'm anxious to see how this all plays out. It's on June 27th. Today, when you're hearing this, it's June 4th. So we're talking 23 days. these next 23 days, if Joe Biden is smart, he keeps taunting him. He keeps pushing him, making it harder for him to bail on this situation. I mean, the thing you have to understand, this debate or both these debates are typically much earlier than debates for presidential candidates have been. It usually comes closer to the election. So this is unusual that it's this early. But if Donald Trump does show up and does what we expect him to do, he may sink his candidacy in that debate. He wouldn't be the first one to sink his candidacy in a debate, but he'll come off looking very badly, very weak, very disoriented, and very confused. And Joe Biden
Oh,
won't.
without a doubt. And of course, Donald Trump is going to swear up and down that Joe Biden was hopped up on something, because how could Sleepy Joe come out and be that coherent? Like, he's going to run his greatest hits of grievances and complaints and excuses. Um, but no, this debate is going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Um, I usually try to catch the debates as they happen, and if I don't catch them, I like to read the transcripts. Um, but I think it's going to be good. I'm hoping they actually still stick with some of the other ones that are closer to beyond the one that's already scheduled, just to give Joe Biden a few more chances to kick Donald Trump's ass.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the first time, though, and the first, if he does come out to the first debate and he gets his ass kicked, he may not come back for the second one. Remember, there were 3 debates in 2020. He came to 2 and didn't come to the third one. He didn't do well in those 2 debates. Joe Biden kicked his ass, and he didn't show up for the third one. So the idea that Donald Trump might not show up is not out of the realm of possibility because he's done it before.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd say there's about a 50-50 chance that he doesn't show to the first one, and when he gets his butt kicked, I'd say it's probably about a 75% chance he doesn't show to the second one, if he's in a position where he's even capable of showing up.
Right. Exactly. I mean, you've seen him as of late, and tell me if it's just me. He looks bad. I mean, he's always looked bad, but he looks especially disheveled these days. His hair isn't as neat. His face almost is contorted, looking differently than we used to seeing. This has obviously taken a toll on his psyche. He's not doing well with it. As much as he tries to act like the big shot on television, the rumors are that people behind the scenes are saying he's terrified and he's upset and he's mad and he's scared. He can try to fake it on television, but you can see it in his face.
Oh yeah, and he's lost several steps. I
Yeah.
mean, I've said it before. When he came out of court carrying that pack of emotional support papers, and he had
Yeah.
his news articles, it just, he wants to reach young people. That reminds me of like somebody coming out with a scrapbook full of newspaper clippings from like the 40s, and oh, look at that. That's kind of what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
That it does not seem like a young person's like thing. And I know Joe Biden's old too, but he came across as just very, very old with that. And, his supporters are going to eat that stuff up. But those of us of a rational mind look at it and go and see it for what it is that he just got paper, articles that were flattering to him to keep his interest and to stroke his ego a little bit.
Well, what Donald Trump looks like now, I've said before and I'll say again, it's just pathetic. I mean, it's pathetic to see the attempts he makes to make himself look good when nothing good is going on for him. The emotional support papers, reading articles from some dipshit radical right guy that says Donnie Trump is great. Nobody cares. Nobody's buying into that, including his own supporters. They love him or they hate him, but Donald Trump is just flailing around trying to do anything to maintain his image. and it's not going well. He's losing all his money. He's losing support. I mean, Donald Trump comes out and says that, and a lot of Trump-fucks have said this. Oh, you convicted him. Now you guaranteed he's going to win. Yet the polls, if we can trust the polls, are saying that 49, 50% of the independents will not vote for him, that maybe as many as 15% of the Republicans will not vote for him. And that's a problem for Donald Trump. He has to have the entire Republican Party behind him and some of the independents behind him to even hope to win. And now that he's lost them, this is why I say there's no way he has a path to win in November.
Yeah, I did a TikTok about that. The one poll that said like 49% of all registered voters that responded said that they thought he should drop out of the race. And I said, of course, you can't trust polls. We know how bullshit polls can be.
Yeah.
But that's a starting point. No, it's a starting point number. And I don't expect, unless they pull some shenanigans with these polls, for those poll numbers to drop. I expect that number to only keep getting higher and higher
Right.
as we get closer to the election.
Well, and I think that's what we can expect. I've said this all along too. The polls have been pretty even, or Donald Trump is winning. But these recent polls about Donald Trump after his conviction are starting to go the other way. Some of the regular polls are starting to go the other way. And I think that's what's going to happen between now and November. We're slowly going to see Joe Biden taking control because they want to get on the right side of the story. They don't want to be wrong. They're telling what they were telling when there was no way to verify whether it's true. But as they're getting closer to the actual game time, they're going to have to try to adjust so that they're right in the end, or at least close to right. And the only way they can be right is if they show Joe Biden winning. And I think we're going to see the polls start heading that way. Not that you should trust them anymore, but that may be the other tactic. Let's make them think that Biden is winning big so they won't come out and vote. Either way, you can't be trusting of the polls, but we may see the polls and the reports of the polls starting to shift.
Oh, you might be right. Actually, just a thought I had as you were talking there is you could actually start seeing places like Fox trying to report that Joe Biden is starting to lead in the polls,
Absolutely.
trying to scare up Republicans to go out and vote for Donald Trump. I had
Absolutely.
a Republican, a Trump supporter, come out to my page and said that he didn't support Donald Trump, but he thinks if they replace Donald Trump with any Republican on the ballot, that'll beat Joe Biden. And I'm like, well, how do you figure? You know, where Joe Biden's out fundraising everybody, and there's a section of the Republican Party who won't vote. They just won't come out to vote if Donald Trump's name is not on the ticket.
Right.
They'll stay home.
Absolutely.
How can anybody else beat Joe Biden? And I think those are the stories you're going to start hearing, unless like the right side media can find a way to spin it to put somebody else's name at the top of the ticket, that voting for this person is just like voting for Trump or will save Trump in some way. And that's the only way you could get that group of Republicans out voting for him.
Yeah. The only problem with that is um, the moment they let go of Donald Trump before the election and they put somebody else up there, all hell is going to break loose. If Donald Trump was ever going to spill the beans, once the Republicans are disloyal to him, if he's holding any information on any of those people, it's going to come pouring out like fucking Niagara Falls. So this is why I've said no matter how bad a candidate he is, and I think he's the worst presidential candidate for a major party in the history of this country, they're going to try to hold on to him as long as they can. Because, like you said, if he's not there, a lot of people just won't vote. And that fucks up the down ballot. But over and above that, while you're trying to mount competition against Joe Biden and somebody else, Donald Trump is going to be spinning like a whirling dervish, or like I had a lab dog big old 100-pound lab dog. And when he get excited and get the zoomies and he'd be spinning around, that fucking big old tail would be taking out lamps and pictures and shit like that. That's what Donald Trump will be like.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, they might try to put up somebody we've never really heard of, somebody that wasn't a big name anywhere else, somebody that wasn't even in the uh the original primary run. Because like I said way back when, I think they're going to end up having to put up some sort of a sacrificial candidate,
Yeah,
and whoever they get, it might be somebody who was able to fly under the radar for so long. Look at what they had with Mike Johnson. We had no idea who this fucker was until he gets Speaker of the House,
right.
which is how he got Speaker of the House. If they find somebody else like him who was always, maybe he was a Republican, never opened his mouth, didn't say shit about shit, and Donald Trump doesn't have dirt on him, maybe they can try to get, that might be somebody they try to put up. But then the problem becomes about all the down ballot races, all the senators, all the members of the House, that if he does have dirt on him, Donald Trump will let that shit fly if he's not the name at the top of the ticket.
Absolutely. They're caught. They're stuck. They're stuck with Donald Trump and they know he's going to fail. So they're just, all they can do is ride this out and hope for the best. I will say that I've said this before too. There is no Republican that can beat Joe Biden. I don't give a fuck who it is. None of them have the support. Just look at the primaries. These guys were pulling 2 and 3% support. There isn't one good candidate in those primaries, including Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley will never be the candidate for the Republican Party because she's a woman and her parents are immigrants. That's totally the opposite of the kind of person they would vote in. As we're getting down toward the end of the show, I wanted to bring this up because I think people want to know about this and they may be getting nervous about it. Yesterday, we found out there are a couple of things that happened that almost certainly delay the Florida case for Donald Trump and the Georgia case for Donald Trump. I know you know specifically about one of those at least. Tell us why that's going to be delayed and what we can expect.
Well, in Florida, we know Jack Smith laid a trap for uh, Aileen Cannon.
Right,
He went to her and said, "Hey, give me a gag order against Donald Trump as a condition of his release, so he's not talking about law enforcement and putting law enforcement at risk." She comes back and says, "Well, no, you didn't adequately talk to defense counsel before filing this," which I believe is only a thing in her courtroom.
right,
I don't believe it's a thing anywhere else. But she's like, "You didn't adequately talk to defense counsel." Denied. Try it again, and if you don't talk to defense counsel before filing it again, I'm going to sanction you. So he put it back in again, and he did. He included an email with defense counsel and some phone records of a couple phone calls they had, and a note from the defense counsel saying that Donald Trump vehemently opposes this request,
right,
which I thought that was what defense motions were for. But anyway, well, she came out today and said, "Well, we're going to I'm going to give Donald Trump's side till the 14th to respond. And then Jack Smith's got till the 21st of June to respond to their response," which means then she'll maybe hold a hearing. She probably won't hold a hearing before July. And if she can find a reason to delay it or deny it outright without a hearing or whatever, she's going to. But that means most of June is going to be gone dealing with this gag order thing.
right.
And then whenever this gets resolved, Jack Smith is going to take it to the 11th Circuit and try to get her recused.
But you see what she's
But
doing
that's
here.
awesome.
What she's doing here is she's playing a little fucking dance, a little song and dance. She's trying not to make a decision. She's trying to continue to delay it because until she makes a decision, he can't appeal it to the 11th Circuit. So she's dancing around this thing, knowing she's hanging by a thread here, trying to delay it longer and longer. And I know people are going to be upset by that because she may not come till mid-July with an answer to it, and then she may do something else to extend it even longer. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen with that, but she's doing her job. She's delaying the case.
Oh, she is, but I have no doubt when Jack Smith takes it to the 11th Circuit, they are going to recuse her. However, I was also reading apparently they have gotten over 100,000 complaints about her
Wow.
at the 11th Circuit. And they're all very similarly worded. They called it an orchestrated effort, basically. And they said they're instructing the clerks to not accept or notate anymore if they're basically carbon copies of the stuff they've already gotten because they expect it to continue. But they will keep looking at the ones as they come in, and if they're different, then they will look like if they appear to be genuine, different, and not part of a major effort to get her recused, they'll consider those
So these notes are going to her or to the 11th Circuit?
to the 11th Circuit.
Oh, okay.
And the 11th Circuit has said we've got like I think they said 100,000 of them from various people. I don't. They didn't. The article I read didn't say like who was all say giving these. It wasn't anything from Jack Smith's office or team though. But it's similar to stuff like what you heard out of like Elise Stefanik. Well, I'm going to make a motion with the New York bar to look into this and file sanctions against Judge Merchan or whatever. It's something similar to that. But they said all these notes were all very similarly written, almost carbon copies of each other.
Well, that's not surprising because we've all seen them on the internet. When you want to make a complaint, when somebody wants you to make a complaint to a member of the House or the Senate, they create this document and you can go online, basically sign it and send it off yourself. So it would all be the same letter. But that doesn't mean, if it's orchestrated, that these people don't have a reasonable complaint. Now, the other delay is with Georgia, and that's an interesting situation. We know that Fonnie Willis got in a bit of trouble, at least with the court, for a relationship she had. Donald Trump's team wanted her to be recused from the case, and the judge said no. The judge said no, and then it was appealed. Now, we were waiting for when this appeal is going to happen, and it was announced yesterday that they're not going to hear this appeal until October, which guarantees the Georgia case won't be till after the election. And I'm sure people are upset about that. But it goes back to what I was saying before. Be careful what you ask for because you just might get it. At this point, now that we have 34 felony charges, convictions against Donald Trump, I don't care if they come after the, because to be honest with you, another 10 convictions isn't going to change anything for Donald Trump between now and the election. And then when the election is over, he doesn't win, he has no protection. Now he's got 3 cases bearing down his neck, and he's got no way to protect himself and probably no support. So he wants to delay it at this point. We got what we needed. Fuck him, let him wait. We'll be able to sit for the next term for Joe Biden, watching Donald Trump get his ass kicked every fucking day.
Oh yeah, it's going to be great. And then after the election too, as this stuff's all coming and it's all spiraling, if he hasn't already started releasing whatever he's got against sitting members of Congress, as the DC case starts against him for January 6th, I could almost bet you he would try to cut a deal. Say, look, I'll plead. I'll take a plea deal. Just don't send me to prison. But I'll tell you all the members of Congress that were involved. And, you know, I don't think Jack Smith would take it, but
No.
I bet he'll try it.
Well, the thing about it is this is an historic trial. And Donald Trump is the top of the heap, top of the food chain. There really is no motivation for the prosecution to offer him a deal. I mean, you would offer him a deal if you want to get this done quickly and save money, but they don't want to do that now. At this point, with all the time they put in, and because it's historical, they're going to want to see this to the end. Everybody says, if I was Donald Trump, I'd take a deal. Well, you can't take a deal unless one is offered to you. He wasn't offered one in the Manhattan district. I don't expect he'll get offered one in DC, Florida, or Georgia. And besides, if he did get a deal, he'd have to admit to guilt. And Donald Trump is just not able to admit to guilt, no matter how easy it would get him off.
Oh yeah, I mean, I agree with that. That he can't really admit to guilt, but I'm just saying, I think he would probably come out in an unhinged thing and try saying, "Well, I'll give you everything about everybody if you let me out." Like he'll make the offer.
Yeah,
He
I
probably would
agree.
never accept. He probably never accept it if once he finds out he's got to admit he did something wrong. But there is nobody on this planet that he is not willing to throw under the bus if it means saving himself.
Well, and the thing about it is we know he's not above just making shit up, just
Oh yeah.
taking what he thinks and calling it a fact and throwing it out there. And all of his buddies, they've got to be pretty wary about this. They're seeing him in a disoriented state, a scared state. I'll be honest with you. My biggest concern about Donald Trump, if he starts flapping his gums, his safety might be at risk, and not from Democrats.
Yeah, you might be onto something.
Well, we saw what happened to Jeffrey Epstein. That wasn't
True.
that wasn't a suicide. And once people are looking at the prospect of getting exposed, if they've got a little money and a little power, weirder things could happen. I mean, you could see them doing something like that. I mean, I'm hoping that's not the case because I don't want Donald Trump to be a martyr. I want him to live a long and healthy life in jail. But you could see them if something happened to say we get close to the election. Donald Trump doesn't want to back out. If he does, they're going to get shit from Donald Trump if he's taken off the ticket. But what happens if something happens to Donald Trump? They bring somebody else up and blame the Democrats for taking out Donald Trump. That sounds like a crazy, crazy theory. And it is a crazy theory, but that's all the Republicans are about, a crazy fucking theory.
It's just crazy enough that they could do it.
I hope they don't. I don't want to see any violence in this to Donald Trump. I want Donald Trump to pay for his crimes, and I don't want him having a heart attack. I don't want anybody taking him out. I want him to be able to be accountable for everything every day for the rest of his life, and hopefully it's a long one.
Oh yeah. Love to see him make it to 150 as long as every one of those days is behind bars.
That would be nice. That would be nice. The only problem with him making it to about 150, I'd have to be 138 to enjoy it. And I'm not making it to 138. I'm pretty sure of that. All right, Eric. Well, thank you for coming by. We're going to wrap things up here, but thank you for stopping by and making for an interesting podcast. I know the folks love it, and I enjoy having you here. Let's tell the folks where they can see you, sans
All right.
me, on your own on TikTok and
Well,
YouTube.
well, thanks for having me. I love being on the podcast. If you are looking for me on YouTube or on TikTok, uh, Analytical Iowan, ANALYTICALIOWAN, all one word. It's a mouthful. Um, and most of my TikToks do make it to YouTube. Um, I occasionally have issues with getting some of them over there, and sometimes getting them loaded into YouTube. Sometimes it's the following day in the wee hours, but I do try to get everything up to as much as I can up onto YouTube as well.
And if anybody out there um, wants to get in touch with Eric because he owes you money, never mind. That shit isn't true.
Yeah.
No, seriously,
Um,
check Eric out. He does a great job on TikTok and YouTube, and he has some valuable information. And I'm not just saying it because he agrees with me. Actually, that's exactly why I'm saying it, because you agree with me
I agree with you most of the time. I
most of the
occasionally
time.
disagree with you.
And that's all right. A lot of people don't always agree with me. First and foremost, my wife and family. They probably disagree with
I
me most of
expected
the
you to
time.
say that.
That's why I come to TikTok. Not everybody agrees with me on everything, but more people agree with me on more things than my own family does. So it's like coming home, and I enjoy it. But well, Eric, thank you very much. Check him out on TikTok and on YouTube. For those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.